Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Sharon Turman. I use she, her pronouns, and I direct the work and family program at Legal Aid at Work. And I will pass it to Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Witchett, and I'm a staff attorney at Legal Aid at Work and use she, her pronouns.
So Legal Aid at Work is a statewide nonprofit legal organization. We're based in San Francisco, but we work throughout the state of California, and we protect and advance the workplace rights of people with low incomes. We developed this training in partnership with the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency as part of its COVID-19 worker outreach project. Today, Katie and I are going to talk about the leave and pay rights available to California workers who are affected by COVID-19. And we're also going to highlight some Know Your Rights resources on this topic that Legal Aid at Work has created in collaboration with the labor agency as part of the outreach project. Next slide, please. So the leave and pay rights that we are going to cover include paid sick leave, disability insurance and paid family leave, job protected leave through the California Family Rights Act, and exclusion pay. All of the rights and benefits that we will talk about today are available regardless of immigration status. So before we begin to talk about these rights, we want to start by sharing the story of a worker named Sandra. And we will come back to Sandra's story a few times throughout this training to learn how the various rights and protections we talk about apply to her situation. So Sandra has worked full-time for 2 years for a grocery store with 30 employees. She has dinner with a family member and the next day learns that that family member is diagnosed with COVID-19. Because of this exposure, Sandra needs to quarantine herself. After 3 days of quarantine, Sandra becomes very ill and she tests positive for COVID-19. Her healthcare provider tells her that she needs to be out of work for 2 more weeks. So I will now pass it to Katie to start talking about the rights.
Thanks, Sharon. So the first law we want to talk about is unfortunately one that has recently expired. It's COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave. But what this law did was it gave workers up to 80 hours or 2 weeks of job protected time off from work when they could not work or telework because either they were sick with or exposed to COVID-19, they were caring for a family member who was sick or quarantining due to COVID-19, they were caring for a child whose school was closed or unavailable because of COVID-19 on the location, or they were receiving or recovering from a COVID-19 vaccination. During that time, workers would receive their full pay up to a maximum of $511 per day. But this right did expire at the end of September. However, for workers who took leave before October 1st and did qualify for this pay, but did not receive it, they can still request that from their employer or make a file with the labor commissioner. Fortunately, California does have a permanent paid sick days law as well. So California permanent paid sick days is a law that allows workers to take job protected time off from work when they are either sick or engaging in preventative care or caring for a family member who is sick or needs preventative care. Workers accrue this time based off of when they are working, accruing 1 hour for every 30 hours that are worked. So this time could be used if somebody was exposed to COVID-19 or sick with COVID-19 or receiving a vaccination. It is important to remember that some localities do have more generous protections that allow people to take additional job protected paid time off. So that leaves the question of what is it that you should do? If somebody wants to use California paid sick days, they should request it from their employer, either orally or in writing. And if somebody already took leave in 2021 for COVID-19 and their employer did not pay them, they can request that COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave if they qualify. If an employer doesn't give you the paid sick leave that you qualified for or treats you worse because of that request, you can file a claim with the labor commissioner. So let's go back to Sandra and think about how this applies to her situation. As you'll remember, Sandra had dinner with a family member, and then the next day she learned that the family member was diagnosed with COVID-19. So because of this exposure, Sandra also needed to quarantine. So can she take paid sick leave? And the answer is yes. She can use her regular California paid sick days if she has not already used them. Note that payment for part-time workers is based on whatever their regular schedule is. And with that, I'll pass it back to Sharon.
Great. So now we're going to talk about California disability insurance, also sometimes referred to as state disability insurance or SDI. And this is a worker-funded benefit that provides partial pay while you cannot work due to your own non-workplace related illness, disability, or injury. It also covers pregnancy-related conditions. You're eligible if you've paid in to the state disability insurance fund during a specific 1-year base period before you apply. Most people pay in automatically, and your pay stub should actually show that you're contributing to CA, SDI, or SDI. And this benefit provides 60 or 70% of your pay, depending on your income, with lower wage earners earning 70% of their pay. And the benefits last for up to 52 weeks. There is a 1-week waiting period before your benefits begin. It's important to note that disability insurance does not protect your job. So just because you're receiving these benefits from the EDD, the Employment Development Department, does not mean that your employer is required to hold your job for you. They would only be required to hold your job if you're covered under a separate job protection law, and we'll talk more about job protection in a little bit. So I also wanted to talk with you about paid family leave, and this is another worker-funded benefit that's available if you are taking leave from work to care for a family member who is seriously ill. Paid family leave also covers time to bond with a new child or time to deal with a loved one's deployment overseas. And this benefit provides, it's just like state disability insurance, it provides 60 or 70% of your pay, but only for up to 8 weeks per year. You are eligible if you've paid into the state disability insurance fund during your base period. And as with disability insurance, paid family leave is a wage replacement program. It does not protect your job, but there is a separate law that we'll talk about in a bit that may protect your job while you're taking these benefits. There is no waiting period for paid family leave. So how do you apply for disability insurance and paid family leave? Both of these programs are administered, as I mentioned, by the Employment Development Department, or EDD. So you actually apply directly to the EDD for these benefits. You can apply online, or you can use a paper application. If you're an undocumented worker, you should use a paper application, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If you were infected with COVID-19 at work and you need medical treatment, or you lost wages due to your illness, you should know that you may be eligible for workers' compensation. And you can learn more about that program by going to the dir.ca.gov, the Department of Industrial Relations. So this slide shows resource called the Undocumented Workers Guide to Applying for California Disability Insurance and Paid Family Leave. This is a new guide that we created in partnership with the labor agency. What's shown on this slide is actually a one-page overview of a longer step-by-step guide, both of which are available on Legal Aid at Work's website in English and in several other languages. This guide explains that disability insurance and paid family leave are available regardless of immigration status, but because the application forms currently ask for the social security number of the applicant, this guide provides recommended steps that undocumented workers can follow to apply for benefits without having to swear that they have the social security number. So briefly, those steps are: number one, request a paper application, as I mentioned. Number two, complete and submit the application and leave blank the question that asks for your social security number, but attach a letter and proof of wages during your base period. Number three, follow up with the EDD if they contact you for more information. And number four, receive your benefits. So definitely check out the full guide for more detailed information. It also includes sample letters to the EDD that undocumented workers can submit to the EDD along with their application. So now going back to Sandra, excuse me, we know that she was quarantining because she was exposed to COVID-19 by a family member. Then Sandra becomes very ill and tests positive for COVID-19 herself. Sandra's doctor tells her that she needs to be out of work for 2 more weeks. If she already took 3 days under California paid sick days, can she get any pay after those 3 days? And the answer is yes. If she paid into state disability insurance, she can get disability insurance benefits from the Employment Development Department. And this will give her 60% of her wages. But will her job be safe? And I'll turn it to Katie to talk about job protection.
Thanks, Sharon. As Sharon was mentioning, there are these benefits that provide pay but don't protect your job. So we want to take the time to go over what laws actually do protect your job and make sure that workers who are sick with COVID-19 have a job that they can return to. So the California Family Rights Act is a separate law that requires employers to hold workers' jobs and continue their health benefits when they need time off of work because of their own serious illness or to take care of a family member who is also seriously ill. It's something that can also be used to bond with a new baby or because of a military exigency. So what it does is it provides 12 weeks of job protected time off per year. To qualify, an employee has to work for an employer that has at least 5 employees. They have to have worked for the employer for at least 1 year, and they have to have worked at least 1,250 hours within that past year, which works out to be a little bit more than part-time. So how do you get it? To access this time, somebody should tell their employer that they need leave for a COVID-19 related serious illness. It is illegal for an employer to deny this leave, to refuse to bring somebody back to the same or a comparable job after the leave, or to treat somebody worse because they took that time off. Even if a worker does not qualify under the California Family Rights Act, or if they need more time than those 12 weeks, it's possible that the employer will be required to hold their job for them if the person has a disability. Serious COVID-19 related conditions can qualify as a disability. To learn more or to file a complaint under both of these laws, you can go to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing's website. So let's go back to Sandra. As we were talking about, we learned that after receiving paid sick leave, she was able to receive additional income through state disability insurance because of her COVID-19 related illness. But that still leaves the question of whether her job will be protected when she takes that time off. Fortunately, the answer is yes. She can take up to 12 more weeks of leave under the California Family Rights Act. And during that time, her employer must continue her health benefits, and they must bring her back to the same or comparable position after her time off. So this slide brings together what we've discussed. It shows on the top how she'll receive pay, that she could get paid sick days for 3 days, and then after that, receive income through state disability insurance. And it also shows how after those 3 paid sick days, her job can be protected by the California Family Rights Act. So to summarize, if a worker like Sandra has been exposed or diagnosed with COVID-19, these are the steps that they should follow. The first is to tell the employer that they need paid sick days and to tell them when they expect to return. If that illness becomes serious and somebody needs additional time off, they should tell their employer about their serious illness, ask for California Family Rights Act leave to protect their job, and then also apply for disability insurance from the Employment Development Department. In the case of somebody who is caring for a family member who's seriously ill, the first step is still the same. Tell the employer about the illness and request to use California paid sick days. However, after that, that person will need to ask their employer for leave under the California Family Rights Act to care for their family member. But instead, they'll apply for paid family leave from the Employment Development Department instead of state disability insurance. And I'll pass it back to Sharon.
Thanks, Katie. So I'll share with you about this resource that's shown on the screen. This is a resource called COVID and My Job. And on one side, it shows the rights that we've talked about that apply to workers who are affected by COVID themselves, who've been exposed or diagnosed with COVID. On the other side, it shows all the rights that apply to a worker who is caring for somebody else affected by COVID. So this is available on Legal Aid at Work's website, and it also will be available in Spanish very soon. Now I'll share with you about exclusion pay, which is the last right that we wanted to talk about. And this is under Cal OSHA's emergency temporary standards. So if you have been exposed to COVID-19 at work, your employer is required to exclude you or keep you out of the workplace for a certain amount of time and has to continue paying you and continue your benefits. So if you think that explains your situation, ask your employer for exclusion pay. If you have COVID-19 and you might have caught it at work, you could qualify for workers' compensation. Note that exclusion pay would not apply to Sandra's situation because her diagnosis of COVID-19 was not work-related. So we also want to make sure that you all are aware of a new COVID-19 worker benefits and leave navigator, which is available in English and Spanish on the Safer at Work website. And this is a resource that will allow you to select various scenarios, including I have COVID or I've been exposed to COVID, I'm caring for someone with COVID, and answer a series of questions. And then you can find out if you're eligible for various workplace protections, including paid leave and job protected leave, and many of the protections that we've talked about today. So there's also a whole host of other resources available about all of the rights that we talked about today, available in multiple languages at saferatwork.covid19.ca.gov and or also on Legal Aid at Work's website, which is legalaidатwork.org. And that's shown here on this slide, which is our website. We also, as I mentioned, have fact sheets in multiple languages. And if anyone has questions about the training today, please feel free to reach out to Legal Aid at Work's Work and Family Helpline. We provide free confidential advice about all the rights and more that we discussed today. And we also provide technical assistance to healthcare providers and social service providers and community advocates. So thank you so much again for being with us today, and feel free to reach out if you have other questions. First, I'll share with you about this resource that's shown on the screen. This is a resource called COVID and My Job. And on one side, it shows the rights that we've talked about that apply to workers who are affected by COVID themselves, who've been exposed or diagnosed with COVID. On the other side, it shows all the rights that apply to a worker who is caring for somebody else affected by COVID. So this is available on Legal Aid at Work's website, and it also will be available in Spanish very soon. Now I'll share with you about exclusion pay, which is the last right that we wanted to talk about. And this is under Cal OSHA's emergency temporary standards. So if you have been exposed to COVID-19 at work, your employer is required to exclude you or keep you out of the workplace for a certain amount of time, and has to continue paying you and continue your benefits. This is only available if you are able and available to work, but your employer keeps you from working because of a COVID exposure at work. So if you think that explains your situation, ask your employer for exclusion pay. If you have COVID-19 and you might have caught it at work, you could qualify for workers' compensation. Note that exclusion pay would not apply to Sandra's situation because her diagnosis of COVID-19 was not work-related. So we also want to make sure that you all are aware of a new COVID-19 worker benefits and leave navigator, which is available in English and Spanish on the Safer at Work website. And this is a resource that will allow you to select various scenarios, including I have COVID, or I've been exposed to COVID, I'm caring for someone with COVID, and answer a series of questions. And then you can find out if you're eligible for various workplace protections, including paid leave and job protected leave, and many of the protections that we've talked about today. So there's also a whole host of other resources available about all of the rights that we talked about today, available in multiple languages at saferatwork.covid19.ca.gov and or also on Legal Aid at Work's website, which is legalaidатwork.org. And that's shown here on this slide, which is our website. We also, as I mentioned, have fact sheets in multiple languages. And if anyone has questions about the training today, please feel free to reach out to Legal Aid at Work's Work and Family Helpline. We provide free confidential advice about all the rights and more that we discussed today. And we also provide technical assistance to healthcare providers and social service providers and community advocates. So thank you so much again for being with us today, and feel free to reach out if you have other questions.